The SparkNotes version of Troy's lesson in High School Musical 2 is that you must use your privilege to uplift others. So many people get caught up in the Troy's friends were wrong to be mad at him, this and that. You're missing the point. And that's okay, because another debatable question is, did the movie do a great job at pushing this point? Could there have been some different plot lines that would have helped elevate this point a little bit more? I don't know, let me know. Troy, in the beginning of the movie, used his privilege to get everyone jobs at Lava Springs. Of course, he wasn't aware that he was getting this privilege because he was Troy Bolton, because Sharpay wanted him, but look at that. He didn't know that, and he used his privilege to help his friends. Troy begins taking all these advantages from Sharpay. He stops questioning them, and at the end of the day, he is just tolerating Sharpay to be able to get maybe this potential scholarship that the father may offer him. But here's the thing. When we are talking about what it looks like to use your privilege to uplift others, we have to ask the audience, what does that look like? What do you need to know in order to do that? A, we need to be able to recognize what your privilege is, what that looks like in the group, right? One of the things Chad's notes when they have this argument is, we didn't vote you captain because of your jump shot. We voted you captain because you always know what's up. Even with the conversation with his dad, he was able to notice that there were some power plays happening here, right? He didn't feel comfortable that his friends became the servers to him when they were just supposed to be on this equal playing ground. And some dialogue to connect is when he's having a conversation about this with his father. One of the things that dad says, there's nothing wrong with keeping your eye on the prize. If you don't, you get left behind, right? And we look at who has done something like that? Sharpay, right? In the way that she has really isolated herself because she is only focused on herself. That's it. If anyone challenges her spot, she's going to sabotage them because she should be the center of the attention, and that's how things should be in her world, right? Later, Gabriella says, "You're very good at playing a game that I don't want to play, but you better step away from the mirror long enough to check the damage that will always be right behind you." Should you leave people behind? You don't have to leave people behind. But I wonder why everyone associates, this question like, well, what did they want Troy to do? Get them scholarships? Why do you think that was the point? Do you know what it actually looks like to help uplift others? How do you recognize privilege in your own life? And what can you use your privilege that you have to speak up or help others? We know Troy started off the movie using his privilege to help uplift his friends with him. What does that look like in other facets of life, right? Also speaking up, because when Sharpay was treating her friends poorly, and Troy comes to this realization like, shit, I've kind of been treating my friends like crap too, he goes to Sharpay and says, hey, I don't like the way you've been treating my friends. I don't like the way I've been treating my friends. I'm not doing the singing with you anymore. You're not getting your way. Then, when Sharpay wants to pull Ryan back in, right? Ryan stands up to Sharpay and says, sorry, sis, I'm not going to sing with you just because Troy said I'm not going to sing with you. When Troy goes back to Sharpay and says, okay, I'll sing with you if the Wildcats also get a chance to sing and perform as well. We need to be utilizing the privilege to, A, we have to recognize what that privilege looks like so we know how we can help, right? And say, let me speak up when something wrong is happening. Let me see how I can use my privilege to help uplift other people. And we can also ask ourselves, well, Sharpay didn't have great intentions, and even in a world where Troy decided he was going to uplift his friends in whatever way that looked like, even if that was just introducing the boys to the Redhawks, to be like, hey, we all played on the team together, just wanted to introduce you to my boys, they're why I'm here today, and that's it, right? Like, it could have just been like that, right? No one was asking for the boys to also get scholarships, and I need people to stop saying that. No one was asking for that. Chad's big gripe was the inclusivity that Chad has always gotten from Troy. Now, I know it's hard to be like, well, they didn't give a fuck about him in the first movie. It's the status quo of it all, and I know, which we can maybe put up to maybe the things the movie did poorly, right? Like, they do a lot of bouncing back and forth from what they do and don't want because of the status quo, something to consider. But ultimately, we're talking about who Troy is as a person and what is the lesson we are learning. And a quote I just read in an Angela Davis book really sums up Troy's lesson. We must lift as we climb. We have to recognize where our privilege lies and what we can do to actually help other people, whether that be helping uplift others through opportunity, whether that be speaking up, right? Because we may not face as many consequences if we speak up in comparison to them. Like, how are we helping other people? We don't need to leave people behind. But I think people assume, what do you want it all? You also want this, you also want that. And it's like, I feel like people just continually miss the point, and it kind of drives me crazy because it's like, I know I'm doing an analysis and that's why I can look at it this way, but like, this idea, if you keep your eye on the prize, if you don't, you get left behind, but you don't have to get left behind because we're all in this together. If we work together, we can all thrive together in our own individual ways, right? And when you tie that to the reality, right, the lesson that we can connect to our world, the oppressive systems of white supremacy and patriarchy want to tell us this lie, right, that we have to leave people behind, otherwise we get left behind. But the truth is, we're all in this together, right? The reasons why they don't want certain people to thrive is because they want to be individualistic, like Sharpay, right? That's why Sharpay is an incredible metaphor for white supremacy, because she only thinks of herself. And where has that gotten her? I mean, that has gotten to her into some power, in a sense, if you want to call it that, right? But she's ultimately isolated. Even Ryan learns this lesson in High School Musical too, right? He's been so isolated from everybody because it's just been Sharpay and Ryan, Sharpay and Ryan. And when he's finally kicked out of that, he ends up becoming friends with the Wildcats, and they just work together. And he uses his privilege, his new privilege, right, to stand up to his sister and say, girl, I'm not doing what you want anymore. And what Gabriella says, but you better step away from the mirror long enough to check the damage that will always be right behind you. And if we move only with ourselves in mind, right, connecting this to the worldly problems we have now, is that why we've gotten where we've gotten? Why these oppressive structures continually being upheld, that we're leaving all this damage behind? The damage is to people. The damage is to people. The hurt to the people. The death of the people. The suffering of the people. Like, the way we can make these connections, the way Disney Channel was radicalizing us, okay, at 12, 13 years old. But it's like, are people getting it? Please leave in the comments if you're like, yes, I hear you, I'm understanding this. Because sometimes I feel like this is the point that people are missing. The connection to what the point was and how we can apply that to our real world and what we're facing right now. And I can understand we have gripes with maybe the issue with people not understanding this is the plot in of itself. So I also want to know, I'd love to hear from you, how would you have changed the plot of High School Musical 2 to support this lesson that we see Troy learn?